something bad to us, we are going to do things to you that have never been done before.
What the is that, dude?
Well, good morning, beautiful people. How are you this very fine morning? I would have said good evening, beautiful people, last night if I had been awake. My brain yesterday got attacked. About the only way I can describe that. I did a lot of brain work yesterday, and it must have just knackered me for whatever reason. I did a lot of work as well, but come last night, I was snoring while you were sitting there waiting to wondering whether the show was going to come on. So my apologies. And I have slept basically from before 6 o'clock last night until 3:30 this morning when I pinged my eyes this morning then. So for the last few hours, I've been sitting going through some of the more recent things that have been happening. And there have been a couple of interesting things that have happened around here. Yesterday afternoon, we were discussing with Senator Malcolm Roberts a couple of days ago the fire ant situation. Yesterday afternoon, the fire ant inspector turned up at the property. Wasn't that fun? This whole fire ant thing has been on my periphery for years. I've lived in supposedly fire ant prone areas around Brisbane various times in my life. Fire ants are nothing new. I've got to be honest and say I've never seen one. Apparently I've lived in numerous areas full of them, but I've never actually seen one. Nor have we seen one on this property. And we made it fairly clear yesterday, or the two girls did at any rate, made it very clear that they're not keen to be sprayed, this property oversprayed. Neither is the property beside us, behind us. The army base has already been done, apparently, or will be done. We don't have much say in that. That's only across the road. But they do it on days where there's no wind, so they say. There is one property owner around here who does want it done, even though there is no evidence on his property either. It doesn't matter whether there's evidence of fire ants on your property in southeast Queensland. The people who come onto your property to supposedly inspect for them have complete impunity. And while this fellow was very nice and didn't push the boundary, he stopped when he got to the no trespass signs, the private property signs. He didn't go past those gates. So he's wise in that regard. However, made it very clear that, yes, you can refuse to be sprayed, but you'll be called to court and be made to explain, and nobody's ever won in court. That's because our judicial system is completely fucking rigged. Don't we know that? You want to talk about rigged? I'll tell you about rigged. Oh, no, that's the wrong rigged. Let me share a different tab instead. Have a look at that smarmy little face. That's the face of Reece Pianta. He's the advocacy manager for fire ants. Now, what does that mean? Well, he's the bloke that pushes very hard for fire ant eradication. And if you can read this bio on this prick here, previously Reece worked with the Invasive Species Council, watch this, on the successful campaign for a 10-year fire ant eradication program. How is it successful, an eradication program, if we've still got them? Gets better. This prick was also involved in the early formation of the yellow crazy ant eradication efforts up in Townsville, far north Queensland. I haven't seen a crazy ant, but I've only been to far north Queensland once. Not to say that they're not there, and apparently you don't want to get bitten by one. Now, he's been on the junkets. He's visited infestation areas in Cairns and Townsville. And, of course, he lives in a fire ant biosecurity zone in Brisbane. He lives in the Pine Rivers area in Samford, the Samford Valley. We'll get to who he shares the house with in a minute. Previously, this guy, who I think during his school years would have spent a formidable amount of time inside a boot locker or a clothes locker, I don't think he was leading the football team, put it that way. Just look at that smarmy face. Oh, God. At any rate, previously this prick used to be the ministerial advisor on renewable energy for Queensland, so you can have great faith in anything that he comes out with. He was into communications and he was in the campaigns in the Queensland National Parks Association. You know, the national parks that are all getting locked up, that you can't get into these days anymore. You can't walk, you can't climb, you can't fart, you can't camp. Yeah, he was part of that. And obviously he holds the hands and other things of local members of parliament and candidates for public office at every level. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree. Yeah. He works on Brisbane on the land of the Gubbi Gubbi and Turrbal people, who managed to manage the fire ants and anything else on this land for thousands and thousands and thousands of years before this little, whatever you call it, turns up. Well, can I tell you that Reece isn't alone in his efforts here? Reece is married. I think he should consider himself lucky. You know, we all should consider ourselves lucky if we found a life partner. He's found this piece of work. This piece of work is the member for Pine Rivers in Queensland, a Labor Party member named Nikki Boyd. Now, Nikki Boyd is the current Minister for Police Emergency Services and everybody who's locked up. Interesting. So a police minister who is actually the minister responsible for overseeing part of what's going on. Though it doesn't stop there, sadly. I'm still digging, but it looks like, at this point, at any rate, that Reece, this horrible little piece of work, it looks like this bloke, while being the advocacy manager for the fire ant eradication program, you know, the successful one run over 10 years that didn't seem to be all that successful because we're still doing it. How do these incompetents get to go through? Well, they get to marry another incompetent who becomes a friggin' minister in a Labor government. That isn't a high benchmark to reach, I've got to tell you. But at this stage, and I hope to have the full details and be able to bring those to you sooner rather than later. But this bloke is tied up much deeper in the fire ant business. Much, much deeper. There are allegations, and at this point, I'll point out they are only allegations, that this fella is involved with or is the sole distributor for fipronil, or fipronil, I think it's called, which is the poison they're using to kill the ants, the fire ants. Now, this particular poison has history. It kills everything. It's non-discriminatory. It kills everything, particularly babies, particularly pregnant mothers of anything, from animals through to humans. There have been repeated examples of birth deformities and stillbirths after anything pregnant has been sprayed by this shit. It has been banned in Europe. It's been banned in China. It's banned in the US. But it looks like this bloke may have very close associations and be the sole distributor for that poison. He may also be, well, I'm going to try and find this out later today, he also might be an owner or the owner, a part owner or maybe the full owner of at least one helicopter service used to spray this shit. I suspect the one around the Sept Valley, southeast Queensland. And I have seen that helicopter around the Canungra area. It's a white one. I wasn't close enough to get a good look at it. It might have been a B105 or a B109 rather. Just wasn't quite close enough, but I will find it out. I will take photos of it. I will expose it when it gets out this way. Got a very good camera these days. Looks a long way away. Now, if anybody can help me, the little human being, with the successful 10-year red fire ant eradication program that he's hanging his hat on, and here we are arguing about red fire ants. You know, the ones that are successfully eradicated. What qualification is that successful eradication program come under? Were they successfully eradicated from his place? Not his area, just his house, just his land? Every year, the Queensland government use the fire ants as an excuse to come onto your property and have a look at everything. That's what they do. And this thing is married to the Police and Emergency Services Minister, the Corrections Minister, and the Minister who gets to oversee a lot of what goes on with the fire ants for some reason. It's also interesting that the poison that this bloke made charges you a great premium, I'm sure, to go and get it. My internet's playing funny buggers. I'm going to connect to something different, see what happens there. So this bloke has all the access, may or may not be the sole distributor, importer for this product, this poison, and may or may not be involved in the ownership of at least one of the helicopter companies that disperses it around Queensland. I guess also in far north Queensland with the crazy ants, because they do a lot of work in that area too. I'd like to learn a lot more about this man. He's one of these people who hides in the shadows, works in the dark, and works against us, the people. I've read a lot about Reese Piana today in the last 4 hours or so. We're going to take a deep dive into him and see exactly what he's involved in and exactly what sort of links the companies he has through his wife to the Queensland government. Because it certainly sounds a bit cozy, doesn't it? You know, this police minister, this Nikki Boyd, her husband is the one responsible for pushing the whole fire ant scenario. She's got a large say in how much money gets funded towards that, because it's the state government that throws the money at it, as well as the feds. Now, Malcolm Roberts explained the other night that while the feds do throw some money at it, they have no say in it at all. So there's not a great deal he can do. All he can do is try and apply pressure as well, and we're going to try and apply pressure to the Queensland government. And we're going to take a good look at these relationships, because I'm very interested. And if you happen to be a pilot in any one of these helicopter companies spraying this shit, we're coming to look at you guys too. All right? If you are knowingly spraying a poison that causes cancer, it says so. It can cause cancer. If you are knowingly spraying that over people, over animals, what sort of a human being are you? Oh, well, you know, it's only my job. It's only my job. Yep, that's what the people said as they shoveled Jews into the ovens in Auschwitz. Oh, it's only my job. It's only my job isn't going to save you. It might give you a good life on this earth, financially, materialistically, but one day you are going to face your maker for what you are doing to humanity. And I think you should be made aware of it by humanity before you get there. Because a lot of you are probably doing it unknowingly. Because if you are doing it willingly, then you should be on fucking genocide charges. So if you are one of those helicopter companies that is doing the spraying in southeast Queensland, if you or someone you know is a pilot in one of those helicopter companies, you tell them, we're going to make him a star. We're going to show the world the kind of human beings that spray other human beings like bugs. Before you're done, you will not be able to show your face in public. You will be shamed. As you should be, publicly. Every time you see this Nikki Boyd or any other Queensland government minister, you should yell shame at the top of your voice at them. They're coming for you too, folks. Doesn't matter whether you got fire ants or anything else. They're coming for you. And the only way it's not going to happen is if we stand up. Can we please stand the fuck up? Why am I so interested about standing up today? Well, there's all sorts of interesting people who are willing to stand up. And these ones are uniting, well, pretty much, hang on a minute, let me find it, get the right one. These ones, the Muslim groups, campaigning together, banding together to take control of the areas they live in and to be able to get a say in government. A political advocacy group seeking to mobilise Muslim Australians before the next election says it will elevate the community's voice on non-faith issues, including gambling and domestic violence, alongside Israel's war in Gaza. The Muslims are smart enough to get together, to band together, to see the power they have together. But we Aussies? Nah, she'd be right. She'd be right. They're not going to do that. Oh, they'd never do that to us. Bullshit, they won't. They're already doing it now. And the compliant amongst us shrug their shoulders and say, oh, well, what can you do? Well, you can start by being not compliant. Make them work for the illegality they are conducting. Don't just give it to them. Stand the fuck up, people. If you don't stand up now, there will be no Australian culture. There will be a Muslim culture. Because they are smart enough, bright enough, united enough to do it. We're not. She'd be right. We'll get by. Chuck me another beer. Stand up, people, or lose it all. Or be prepared to follow the Quran. Because of the way, at the rate this Albanese government is importing Muslims, they'll have the balance of power inside 20 years. Probably quicker. 3 election cycles. Think of it like that. Or 4. Can you stand up, people? Can you wake up to what is happening around you? Now, I know I'm preaching to you, and I'm sorry. I'm yelling at you. You're the converted. And I'm sorry. I don't mean to abuse you or make you feel at bloody 7:20 in the morning like you've been beaten around the head with a bloody baseball bat. I'm sorry. I've been up a while, and I've been stewing on this. Can you tell? The Muslims can unite and motivate. And why do they unite and motivate so well? Could it be because they all turn up to their church? The mufti or the mufti or the pansy or whoever it is that stands up the front and issues the orders, and they go away and do it. Or at least they consider it. Seriously, thoughtfully consider what they have been told at prayer. Australians don't. I sometimes wonder whether or not half the people that go to church go there for the wine alone, because that's, the first drink of the day they can have. We've lost our faith. We've lost sight of God. We are living Sodom and Gomorrah. Different times, different way. Same outcome. What are you going to do? You going to go to the party or are you going to resist? Well, I know most of you are going to resist, but what about your neighbours? What about the ones that aren't awake to this? Would this Muslim group getting up and being able to mobilise and take over, and in fact, they are planning on fielding candidates in 52 seats in the next federal election. That's next year, folks. Most of the seats they are going to try and field candidates in are Labor seats, which can probably be applauded, but God help us. Instead of having things like, let me give you a bit of a rundown on the Honourable Nikki Boyd. Why aren't you showing me that? Oh, we'll do that. That'll make it show. There you go. Oh, that's Reese. No, beg your pardon. The Honourable Nikki Boyd, MP, her profession, early childhood educator and union official. You can bet she did more unioning than she did childhood educating. I might be overstating things there, but once they get into the unions, the unions. The power. I heard somebody come out the other day and say, "Oh, unions aren't bad. They don't use power. They're not about power. They're not about." Well, they are about power. That's why we've got the CFMEU at the moment tearing the Labor Party apart, because the Labor Party has given it a little bit of a touch-up. Certainly nowhere near what it deserves. And that'll blow under the carpet, because Labor can't afford to piss the unions off, because that's supposedly where their power base is. But the men and women in those unions are no Labor supporters anymore. I know, because I talk to a lot of them. FIFOs, real, died-on, hard-in-the-wool, blue-collar workers that have voted Labor all their life, now don't. They look for any other alternative. Why? Because Labor isn't about the worker anymore. Labor is about the global corporation. Labor is about itself. And they know that. So why are we seeing immigration go through the roof? Well, it's because Labor knows it's lost its heartland voters. Now it's importing new ones, allowing the gates to open, the flood to come through, and every one of them is told to thank Labor for allowing them into this country. Every one of them of a voting age is manipulated, shown, coerced, cajoled. It doesn't take very much. These folks don't speak real good English in most cases, and they're just happy to be here and will do anything to say thank you. Here, sign this form, tick this box. That's all it takes. That's in part why Labor are throwing our country's doors wide open. The other parties, obviously in line with the global cabal accord to dilute every nation's population, every nation's national identity. Because that's what happens when you throw in hundreds of thousands or millions of immigrants into a nation. It dilutes that nation's culture. The Australian culture is nothing. Well, the Australian culture today is nothing like it was when I was a kid growing up in the 1970s. Now, okay, progress. Yep, I understand progress. But progress usually works in line with your culture, enhances and grows your culture in good ways. Our culture has been perverted. I remember the great speeches about multiculturalism in this country back in the 80s and the 70s for that matter. I remember the first, well, probably wasn't the first, but I remember what I perceived to be the first boat arrivals in this country coming from Vietnam. I don't know how many thousands of nautical miles Vietnam is from Australia, but it's a damn sight further than anywhere in Indonesia. These days, of course, people smugglers love to work out of Indonesia, and our Australian government tries to stop them. Now, our government has set up people smuggling centres in Indonesia that direct people how to get into Australia using it. The Australian government funds that. I have no doubt. That way they can say, oh, we stopped the boats. They didn't stop the arrivals, and they don't do much about chasing up when those who've arrived by plane overstay the visa. Of course, if you're a productive member of Australian society who's overstayed your visa, they're going to have to find you and throw you out, because we can't have productive people coming from overseas and working here. No, shit no. No, we must have unproductive people, people that come over with arts degrees, who will really be a huge help to Australia, won't they? I have an immigration plan for Australia. I know, who the hell am I to have an immigration plan for Australia? But maybe I'm not the only one. Maybe you've got one too. I've never really shared it. I'm keen to see what other immigration plans are available before I started sharing mine. And I'm keen to see what One Nation offer by way of their immigration plan, and some of the other minor parties. I've never looked that deeply. But now, given the way the Labor Party is abusing Australian immigration, given so many people are living hard on the streets, in tents, in caravans, in buses, if they're lucky, under bridges in a sleeping bag if they're not. And given that last night was bloody cold again, in fact, this morning, I think it's only just gone 10 degrees here. Another cold night. Now, after a week of heat, it was a freezing cold night last night. Very cold, and very cold this morning. These people are suffering. What's the Queensland government doing about it this morning? Well, they're loading up their fire ant machine and going to spray them. That's what they're going to do. And while the minister comes in to make her ministerial decisions, her husband, the advocate and apparently successful fire ant eradication specialist, will be making some money, potentially, off sales of fipronil, the poison of all poisons that kills absolutely everything. Since when were killing Australian native ants? When's that been legal? Well, aren't they covered under the Fauna Act and Australian Native Animals Act? Is there such an act? You know what I mean? Kills absolutely everything. And then, if you happen to have buildings that and you catch rainwater, they'll spray all your roofs. So the next rain that comes, all that poison will be washed off your roof straight into your drinking water, or the drinking water of your animals. That is a bloody good statement, Brett. The people that do this live in our community. Shame them. Don't them. Don't abuse them. The people that do this to us live in these communities. And if they don't, they come and they stay locally in the community while they do the job. What do you do when the local pub or local motel gets booked out by a whole bunch of blokes who go to the airport every morning? I don't know. But we got to find these people, whether they are willing participants or just unwitting lemmings. I'm just doing my job. They've got to be told what they're doing. They've got to be shown the poison they're spraying is hurting animals, people, businesses, livelihoods. And you've got to film their reaction, because many of them won't give a damn. Won't care. It's just what I'm doing. It's just what I'm doing today. I fly. I crop dust. That's what I do. Today, the bit of paper says I fly this little square here. That's what I'm going to do. Day. Smart enough to get a pilot's license. Smart enough to get a low-level qualification. Not smart enough to know that what you're spraying is not just killing what you're targeting. Not smart enough to know that what you're spraying is causing birth deformities and stillbirths across animal and human being. Not stupid enough, or maybe too stupid, to realize the ramifications of that. Or maybe you are very aware of all of that. Maybe your swims made you aware of that. And maybe after being made aware of all of that, you make the choice to get in your helicopter, fill it up full of poison, and spray human beings with it, like bugs. Now, if you're that kind of human being, and I've never wished an air accident on anybody, I would be not too concerned if I saw your aircraft fall out of the sky. To have such callous disregard for humanity because you're greedy. That's my job. We get paid. Got a house. Got a family. Yeah. But what about the people you're about to spray living under the bridges or living on the land, who also have families and kids, once had livelihoods until it was taken away because of their inability to want to subject themselves to a medical experiment? And even if you disagree with them doing that, where are you on a humanity level if you can't understand that everybody gets to make a choice about their own body and what goes into it? No, you, sir, are a horrible bastard. And right now, I don't know if you can hear it, there's a helicopter, but it's too high to be spraying. So we are at the back of a corridor here. I quite often see the air ambulance out this way. And I'm just trying to pick the sound of that one. That isn't a crop dusting helicopter. That's more like the air ambulance or a police helicopter going past, which could well be the case. They might come and have a look around here. Weirdest things have happened in this area, you know. Trees have spontaneously popped out of the ground for no apparent reason, gone 100 meters into the air. Have no idea how anything like that could happen, but, you know, the ground is shifting. Earthquakes, seismic activity, I don't know, pockets of air, pockets of natural gas. I don't know, maybe it's pockets of fire ant gas. You know, they're all underground farting away, blowing trees out of the... Geez, you wouldn't want to be flying near anything like that when it came up out of the ground, would you? Oh, if only. All right, folks. A lot of you will be wanting to go and get breakfast or get ready and go to work, and I'm not going to take up an hour of your time tonight, this morning, although I nearly have. Sorry about that. I want you, if you have a mind, I would really, really, really urge you to help me look into this man. I want to know everything we can find out about this man, because he's telling lies in his bio. The successful campaign for a 10-year fire ant eradication program. Well, maybe he successfully campaigned to get the 10-year eradication program in process, in which case he organized a 10-year income for himself and his ministerial wife. How did he get approval to be the only person, if it is the case, to buy and distribute the red fire ant poison, fipronil? Certainly keeping it in the family, isn't it? I'd be really keen. Anything you've got you can find on him, you can send to me at carl@vofhq.com and I will gratefully receive it. There will be a show tonight, although I am doing a bit of work in the truck today. Usually not as tiring as running around on one of those vibrating Duma-Majackies, but or walking uphill and down Dale, but there will be a fair bit of climbing in and out of it. So I'll try and do something through the day to let you know and give you an idea of what we're doing around here. I've got to go back and have a bit of a look through all of the chat that you've put in here at the moment. Oh, shit. I've just seen me hair. Sorry. Bed hair. There you go. Well, that's a bit embarrassing. Sorry, folks. Yeah, I got straight out of bed and sat down at the computer. I never thought about what my hair looked like. Oh, I can't look at that anymore. Righto. There you go. Sorry about that. All right, I'm going to read your comments after the show. I'm going to love you and leave you. You can go off and do great things today, folks. You can do great things. We are all capable of great things. Show me what your great thing is today, hey? As long as it's not involving a dickhead on the road, other than filming them being a dickhead on the road, I'll be happy with that. Have a good day.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back.
Does anybody else want to stay?
Let's ride!